Men like you are proof that money can't buy character, Mr. Hawthorne. You're pathetic. Margot Sinclair's words still echoed in my head 3 weeks later, cutting deeper than any lost deal or plummeting stock price. In that moment, in front of the entire project presentation team, I felt my face burn. Not with anger, but with a toxic mixture of shame and something I had never experienced before. The sensation of being completely transparent before someone. She had stripped me bare with 6 simple words. And the worst part, she was right. Now, sitting in the Italian leather armchair of my second-floor office in the mansion, I watch through the panoramic window as Margot kneels among the tulip beds. Her red hair is pulled back in a messy bun, and she's wearing that moss-green gardening jumpsuit that inexplicably makes my heart race. She shouldn't be here. I should have fired her on the spot. Any respectable CEO would have done so. Public humiliation, insubordination, disrespect for hierarchy. I had every reason in the world. But when I opened my mouth to say the words, "You're fired," what came out was, "You're transferred to the landscaping team at my residence. Start Monday." The look of shock on her face was almost comical. Almost. Because none of this was funny. I, Dashiell Hawthorne, tech magnate, listed by Forbes as one of the country's most eligible bachelors, had just promoted the woman who publicly humiliated me to work at my home. My therapist would have a field day with this. The worst part? 3 weeks later, I discover that locking Margot inside my property has only made everything harder. Now I can't escape her. She's everywhere. In the garden in the morning, drinking lemonade in the kitchen at noon, leaving dirt on the side entrance steps. And that scent of lavender and damp earth that invades the house every time she passes near the porch. My assistant Beverly thinks I'm having a nervous breakdown. My brother Jackson says I've finally found someone who won't bend to my whims. My mother called yesterday, asking if I'd finally found a decent girl because she noticed fresh flowers at the entrance, something that had never happened before. Nobody understands. I don't want to feel this. I don't want my stomach to tighten every time she laughs with Jorge, the other gardener. I don't want to memorize her routine, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays when there are events. I don't want to be disappointed on Sundays because she's not here. Margot stands up, wiping the dirt from her hands on the sides of her jumpsuit, and our eyes meet for a second. She frowns, that expression I've learned to recognize, which means, "What are you looking at?" and returns to work. I take a deep breath and close the curtains. How the hell am I going to fight something I can't even name? The emergency board meeting was supposed to start at 9 a.m. sharp. Instead, I'm standing in my soaking wet Tom Ford suit at 8:47, watching Margot Sinclair bite her lip to keep from laughing. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hawthorne," she says, though her green eyes are absolutely dancing with amusement. "The new sprinkler system has a mind of its own. I had no idea you took your morning calls on the East Terrace." Water drips from my hair onto my Italian leather shoes. My phone, miraculously still functional, buzzes with increasingly frantic messages from Beverly. The CFO of our biggest client just watched me get drenched mid-sentence through video call. Professional disaster doesn't even begin to cover it. "A mind of its own," I repeat slowly, feeling a muscle tick in my jaw. "The sprinkler system that you installed last week has a mind of its own. Well, technically, Jorge installed it. I just designed the—" She stops when she sees my expression. "You're really angry." What gave it away? The fact that I'm wearing half the Pacific Ocean, or that I just looked like an idiot in front of Marcus Chen? Something shifts in her face. The amusement vanishes, replaced by that steel I remember from 3 weeks ago. "You didn't look like an idiot, Mr. Hawthorne. You looked human. Probably the first time in your life." There it is again. That ability she has to reach inside my chest and twist something vital. I take a step closer, water squelching in my shoes. "You have no idea what my life is like." "Don't I?" She crosses her arms. and I notice for the first time that she's wearing a faded Cornell t-shirt under her work overalls. Cornell, my alma mater. Let me guess, boarding school, Ivy League, handed a company before you were 30. Every door opened because of your last name. Every person bowing and scraping because you signed their paychecks. That's not... When's the last time someone told you no, Dashiell? The use of my first name stops me cold. She's never called me that before. When's the last time you actually had to work for something instead of just expecting it to fall into your lap? The anger that's been simmering finally boils over. You think you know me? You've been here 3 weeks, Margot. 3 weeks of planting flowers and avoiding eye contact. You don't know a damn thing about what I've built or what it cost me. Then tell me. She steps closer, and suddenly I'm acutely aware of how small she is compared to me, how the morning sun catches the gold in her hair. Tell me why you didn't fire me. Tell me why you brought me here instead of just ending it professionally and moving on with your perfect, controlled life. My throat goes dry. I don't owe you an explanation. No, you don't. Her voice softens, and somehow that's worse. But maybe you owe yourself one. For a moment, we just stand there. Water continues to drip from my suit. A mockingbird calls from somewhere in the oak tree. The world keeps spinning, but in this bubble of wet grass and morning light, everything feels suspended. You want to know why? The words come out rougher than I intend. Because when you called me pathetic, you were the first person in 15 years to actually see me. Not Hawthorne Tech, not the Forbes profile, not the charitable foundation or the penthouse or any of the other carefully constructed bullshit. You saw me, and you were disgusted, and I couldn't let you walk away thinking that's all there is. Margot's eyes widen. Dashiell, Mr. Hawthorne. Beverly's voice carries across the lawn, shrill with panic. The board meeting. They're waiting. I step back, the spell broken. My assistant appears at the terrace door, tablet in hand, looking like she might hyperventilate. Behind her I can see Jorge trying very hard to blend into the hedges. I'll be there in 5 minutes, I call back. Then to Margot. Fix the sprinklers. Of course. Her voice is carefully neutral now, professional. But her hands are shaking slightly as she reaches for her work gloves. It won't happen again. I start toward the house, then stop. Margot? Yes? That Cornell shirt. Did you graduate, or do you just like collecting college memorabilia? A pause. Class of 2019, Landscape Architecture and Environmental Design, full scholarship. Of course. Of course she earned every inch of ground she stands on. Of course she's not just some gardener I can categorize and forget. I was 2012, I say quietly. Computer engineering. I know. Her smile is small, sad. Your graduation photo is in the alumni magazine they sent when I got accepted. You looked happier then. Before I can process that, she's walking away, her boots leaving dark prints in the wet grass. I watch her until Beverly physically drags me inside, muttering about dry cleaning and rescheduled meetings and corporate disaster management. But all I can think about is that smile, that sad, knowing smile that suggests maybe Margot Sinclair sees a lot more than I'm ready for anyone to see. And I still don't know how to feel about that. My mother's garden parties are legendary in Connecticut society. This one, however, is shaping up to be my personal nightmare. Dashiell, darling, who is that stunning redhead arranging the rose arbor? My mother, Vivian Hawthorne, appears at my elbow with champagne and that look, the one that means she's about to meddle in my life. Please tell me she's someone you're seeing and not another one of your employees. She's the head landscaper, Mother. Oh. Her face falls, then brightens dangerously. Well, she's absolutely lovely. Very natural beauty. Not like that awful Cecilia Vandermeer you brought to Christmas. All cheekbones and no substance. I watch Margot across the lawn, directing 2 temporary workers as they position white chairs around the fountain. She's wearing actual dress clothes today. Black slacks and a forest green blouse that makes her hair look like fire. When I asked her to stay for the party as the garden's representative, I told myself it was purely professional. I'm a terrible liar, even to myself. Dashiell, are you listening to me? Sorry, what? My mother follows my gaze and her smile turns positively feline. Oh my goodness. You have feelings for the gardener. I do not. Don't you dare lie to Vivian Hawthorne. I've known you since you were in diapers. You have the same look your father had when he first saw me. She pats my cheek. This is wonderful. A real woman, not one of those socialite vultures. Mother, please. But she's already gliding away, champagne glass held high, making a beeline directly for Margot. I'm moving before I can think, cutting across the lawn with absolutely no plan except preventing whatever disaster is about to unfold. Simply must tell me how you created such a magnificent space, my mother is saying as I arrive. Margot looks cornered but polite, her hands clasped in front of her like a shield. The hydrangeas alone are worth a magazine spread. Thank you, Mrs. Hawthorne. I just worked with what was already here. Your son has excellent bone structure. She stops, realizes what she said, and her cheeks flush crimson. The garden has excellent bone structure. I fight the urge to laugh. My mother doesn't bother fighting anything. How delightful. Yes, the garden does have wonderful bones. Rather like Dashiell, don't you think? Good bones, strong jaw, kind eyes when he's not pretending to be a corporate shark. Mother. My voice comes out strangled. Oh, don't mother me. I'm simply making conversation with this talented young woman. She turns back to Margot. Tell me, dear, what's your story? You seem far too educated to be simply arranging flowers. Something shudders in Margot's expression. I studied landscape architecture at Cornell, full scholarship. After graduation, I worked for several prestigious firms in Manhattan, but she hesitates, and I find myself leaning in. I realized I preferred creating beauty to maintaining it for people who didn't appreciate it. So I started taking freelance restoration projects instead. And how did you end up working for my son? He hired my firm for a corporate campus redesign. Margot's eyes find mine, and there's something challenging in them. Then he transferred me here after I spoke my mind during a presentation. You spoke your mind, my mother repeats, delighted. How refreshing. Most people just tell Dashiell what he wants to hear. Yes, well, that seems to be part of his problem. The words hang in the air. My mother looks like Christmas came early. I feel like I've been punched in the chest. Again. I like you immensely, my mother declares. You must come to dinner next week. Family dinner, Thursday at 7. Dashiell will send a car. Mrs. Hawthorne, I don't think… Nonsense. It's settled. She spots someone across the lawn. Oh, there's Margaret Chen. I simply must tell her about the hydrangeas. Don't forget, Thursday, 7 sharp. She's gone in a whirl of Chanel No. 5, leaving Margot and me standing in awkward silence. The string quartet starts playing something light and classical. Around us, Connecticut's elite mingles and laughs, completely unaware of the small crisis unfolding by the roses. I'm sorry about that, I finally say. My mother is enthusiastic. She's wonderful. Margot's voice is soft. You're lucky to have her. There's something underneath those words, some sadness I want to understand. Your family? Not part of my life anymore. She straightens, that professional mask sliding back into place. I should get back to work. The caterers need guidance on where to set up the dessert station. Margot, wait. I catch her arm gently, then immediately release it when I feel the electricity of the contact. About Thursday, you don't have to come. I'll make an excuse. Why would you do that? Because this… I gesture vaguely between us. Whatever this is, it's already complicated enough without adding family dinners. She studies me for a long moment, her green eyes searching for something. What if I want complicated? My heart stops. What? You asked me why you didn't fire me. But I never asked myself why I said what I said that day. She takes a breath. I've worked for dozens of powerful men, Mr. Hawthorne. Rich men, influential men, men who thought their money made them gods. And I've called out exactly none of them for their behavior. Only you. Why? Because you were different. Underneath all that corporate armor and calculated charm, I saw someone who was drowning. And instead of feeling satisfied that another billionaire was miserable, I felt angry. Angry that you had everything and appreciated nothing. Angry that you looked so lost. I'm not lost, I say automatically. Yes, you are. She steps closer. And so am I. So maybe we can be lost together for a while. See what happens. Before I can respond, Jorge appears, looking apologetic. Miss Sinclair, the fountain's acting up again. Of course it is. She gives me one last look. Part challenge, part invitation. Thursday, 7. I'll be there. She walks away, leaving me standing among the roses with absolutely no idea what just happened. My carefully ordered world is tilting on its axis, and the terrifying part, I think I want to let it fall. Thursday arrives with the subtlety of an oncoming freight train. I've rescheduled 3 meetings, snapped at Beverly twice, and changed clothes 4 times before settling on casual slacks and a navy sweater. My brother Jackson finds this hilarious. You're nervous about a dinner, he says, lounging against my doorframe like he owns the place. You've negotiated billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat, but a meal with a woman has you spiraling. I'm not spiraling. You're wearing the sweater Mom bought you for Christmas. You hate that sweater. You called it aggressively casual. I look down at the offending garment. He's right, damn him. Get out of my room. Can't. I need to meet this mythical creature who's got Dashiell Hawthorne tied in knots. Jackson grins, all mischief and brotherly antagonism. Mom says she's a gardener who insulted you. I'm already in love with her. The doorbell rings at precisely 7. Of course, Margot is punctual. She's probably punctual about everything, organized and intentional in a way that makes my carefully controlled life look like performance art. I beat everyone to the door, barely, and find Margot standing on the steps in a deep burgundy dress that should be illegal. Her hair is down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and she's wearing actual heels. She looks nervous and beautiful, and completely out of her element. Hi, she says. Hi. I sound like an idiot. You look. Dashiell, stop blocking the door. My mother sweeps me aside with the force of a benevolent hurricane. Margot, darling, come in. That dress is stunning. Is it vintage? Thrift store, actually. I have a thing about sustainable fashion. Even better. Principles and style. Dashiell, why are you still standing there? Take her coat. The dinner is simultaneously the best and worst experience of my life. My mother holds court at the head of the table, effortlessly drawing out Margot's story with the skill of a professional interviewer. Jackson watches me watch Margot with barely concealed amusement. And Margot. Margot is revelation after revelation. So you grew up in Oregon? My mother asks, passing the roasted vegetables. Small town outside Portland. My dad was a logger. Mom was a teacher. Margot's voice is careful, measured. They had very specific ideas about what success looked like, and landscape architecture wasn't it. They wanted you to be a teacher too, Jackson guesses. They wanted me to marry Tommy Richter and have babies. She says it lightly, but I hear the hurt underneath. When I got the Cornell scholarship, they told me I was being selfish, choosing strangers and dirt over family. My hand finds hers under the table before I can think better of it. She startles, then turns her palm up, fingers threading through mine. My mother notices, of course she does, but mercifully says nothing. That must have been incredibly difficult, Vivian says softly. Choosing yourself when the people who should support you are demanding sacrifice. It was. Margot's thumb traces circles on my palm, probably unconscious, definitely driving me insane. But I've never regretted it, even when it was hard, Even when I was eating ramen for weeks because I couldn't afford both food and art supplies, I never once wished I'd stayed. Brave, Jackson says, raising his wine glass. To Margot, who chose herself. We all drink to that. The conversation flows easier after, moving to lighter topics. Jackson's disastrous attempt at learning to sail, my mother's upcoming charity gala, Margot's plans for a meditation garden in the south corner of my property. It feels natural, right? Like she's always been part of these dinners. After dessert, my mother conspires with Jackson to give us privacy. Something about showing him the new conservatory, subtle as a brick. Margot and I find ourselves alone on the back terrace, the night air cool against our skin. Your family is wonderful, she says, leaning against the railing. They like you. I stand beside her, close enough to feel her warmth. Jackson never likes anyone I bring home. You bring a lot of people home? No. The admission costs me. You're the first in 3 years. She turns to face me fully, and in the soft light spilling from the house, she looks almost ethereal. Why me, Dashiell? Really? Not the practiced answer you gave before. The truth. I could lie. I could deflect. I could make a joke and change the subject. Instead, I choose honesty. Because you scare me, I say quietly. Because from the moment you called me pathetic, something cracked open inside me. Something I'd been keeping carefully locked away since I was 25 and took over the company and realized everyone wanted something from me. You don't want anything. You just see me, really see me, and you're not impressed. And somehow that makes me want to be impressive, want to be worthy of being seen. Margot's eyes shine with unshed tears. I'm not some magical fix for your problems. I know. I have my own damage, my own issues. I'm stubborn and judgmental, and I hold grudges like they're Olympic medals. I know that too. And you still want this? Want me? I reach up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, my hand lingering against her cheek. More than I've wanted anything in a very long time. She leans into my touch, eyes closing briefly. When they open, there's determination there, mixed with fear and hope and something that looks dangerously like affection. I need time, she whispers. I need to know this isn't just some billionaire's whim. That when the novelty wears off, you won't suddenly remember I'm the help and this was all a mistake. The words sting, but I understand them. What do you need from me? Patience, honesty, and maybe, she smiles, small and tentative, maybe a few more family dinners. Your mother promised to teach me her secret roast recipe. I laugh, the sound surprised out of me. She's already adopting you. Is that okay? Instead of answering, I lean down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She doesn't. Our lips meet softly, carefully, a question and an answer all at once. She tastes like the crème brûlée we had for dessert, sweet and perfect. The kiss is brief, chaste, but it rocks through me like an earthquake. When we pull apart, Margot's hand is pressed against my chest, right over my racing heart. Okay, she breathes. We can try this. Slowly. Slowly, I agree, even though everything in me wants to pull her close and never let go. From inside, I hear Jackson's voice. Mom, I think they're kissing on the terrace. Margot laughs, bright and genuine, and the sound wraps around my heart like a promise. Maybe, just maybe, I'm finally doing something right. Everything falls apart on a Tuesday. It starts innocently enough, a tech conference in Manhattan, one of those tedious networking events I usually endure alone. This time, I ask Margot to come with me. Not as my employee, not as my landscaper, as my date. She says yes, and I feel like I've won something. The conference is at the plaza, all marble and chandeliers and people in designer clothes talking about disruption and innovation while sipping champagne that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Margot wears a simple black dress. Thrift store again, she tells me proudly, and she's the most beautiful person in the room. For 2 hours, everything is perfect. We talk to investors. She charms a venture capitalist with her ideas about sustainable urban design. And I remember why I fell into tech in the first place. The possibility of it all. The potential to change things. With her beside me, the corporate mask doesn't feel quite so suffocating. Then Cecilia Vandermeer appears. Dashiell, darling. She's all platinum hair and practiced smile. The same woman my mother complained about at the garden party. We dated briefly last year. 3 months of vapid conversations and performative affection. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. We simply must talk about the foundation gala. Cecilia. I feel Margot stiffen beside me. I'm here with someone. Margot Sinclair, this is Cecilia Vandermeer. Cecilia, Margot. Cecilia's eyes sweep over Margot with the precision of a jeweler assessing a fake diamond. Charming dress. Very vintage. And you work in tech? Landscape architecture, Margot says evenly. Oh, the single syllable contains volumes. How earthy. She turns back to me, effectively dismissing Margot from the conversation. Dashiell, I need your advice on the silent auction. Can we talk? Privately? Actually, we were just... It's fine. Margot's voice is tight. I'll get some air. She's gone before I can stop her, disappearing into the crowd. Cecilia latches onto my arm like a barnacle, steering me toward the bar while talking about lot numbers and donor packages. I'm not listening. I'm watching the door Margot vanished through, everything in me screaming to follow. I find her 15 minutes later on the terrace overlooking Central Park, her arms wrapped around herself against the November wind. Hey, I say softly. I'm sorry about Cecilia. She's... Your ex-girlfriend? Margot doesn't look at me. Your mother mentioned her. Said she was old cheekbones and no substance. Despite everything, I almost smile. That's accurate. She belongs in your world, Dashiell. Now she does turn, and her eyes are bright with tears. Did you see how she looked at me? Like I was something you picked up at a flea market. Interesting for a weekend, but ultimately disposable. That's not... And maybe she's right. The words come out harsh, angry. What are we doing? You're Dashiell Hawthorne. You're on magazine covers and corporate boards. You have a mansion and a trust fund and a family legacy going back 5 generations. I plant flowers and live in a studio apartment in Queens. We're from different planets. I don't care about any of that. But everyone else does. Her voice cracks. Your world does. That woman in there looked at my thrift store dress and my calloused hands and saw exactly what I am, someone who doesn't belong. And you know what the worst part is? She's not wrong. I step closer, desperate to close the distance between us. Margot, listen to me. No, you listen. She holds up a hand. I've spent my entire life fighting to be taken seriously, fighting to prove I'm more than where I came from, more than the daughter of a logger who didn't finish high school. I finally got to a place where I'm proud of myself, where I know my worth. And then I walk into that room on your arm, and suddenly I'm back to being Tommy Richter's girlfriend, just an accessory to someone more important. The comparison hits like a physical blow. Is that really what you think? That I see you as an accessory? I think you see me as a project. Her voice gentles, which somehow hurts more. The broken billionaire trying to fix himself by dating someone real, someone who'll make you feel human again. But I'm not your redemption arc, Dashiell. I'm just a person trying to live her life. You're right. The admission surprises us both. When we started, maybe that's what this was. Maybe I did see you as some kind of answer to everything wrong with my life. But Margot, these past few weeks, watching you work, listening to you talk about soil composition and native plants like they're the most important things in the world, seeing you with my family, somewhere along the way, it stopped being about fixing myself and started being about you. Just you. She wipes at her eyes angrily. That's a beautiful speech. It's the truth. Is it? Or is it what you need to believe right now? She moves toward the door. I need some time to think, To figure out if I can actually do this, date someone whose ex-girlfriend probably spends more on shoes than I make in a year, someone whose world will always see me as less than. Margot, please. Take me home, Dashiell. She's not looking at me anymore. Just take me home. The drive back to Queens is silent except for the GPS directions. Margot stares out the window, her reflection in the glass looking small and sad. When we pull up to her building, a modest pre-war walk-up that probably has radiators that clank, she pauses with her hand on the door. I meant what I said at your family dinner, she says quietly, about needing time, needing to know this is real. But tonight reminded me why I built walls in the first place, why I stopped believing in fairy tales. This isn't a fairy tale. My voice is rough. It's messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea, but it's real, Margot. What I feel for you is real. She finally looks at me, and the sadness in her eyes nearly breaks me. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe real isn't enough when the world keeps reminding us we don't make sense. She gets out of the car before I can respond, disappearing into her building without looking back. I sit there for a long time, watching the lights in the windows, wondering which one is hers. My phone buzzes. A text from Jackson. Mom says you left the conference early. Everything okay? I stare at the message, then at the building, then at my hands on the steering wheel. Hands that have signed billion-dollar deals but can't seem to hold on to the one thing that matters. No, I type back. Nothing's okay. For the first time since Margot walked into my life and called me pathetic, I wonder if maybe some things are too broken to fix after all. Margot doesn't come to work for 5 days. I know because I watch for her every morning from my office window like some lovesick Victorian gentleman. Jorge tends the gardens alone, and every time I see him, I want to ask if he's heard from her. I never do. Pride or fear or the crushing awareness that I've ruined everything. Beverly tiptoes around me like I'm a grenade with a loose pin. Jackson stops returning my calls. Even my mother, who has opinions about everything, maintains a diplomatic silence that speaks volumes. On day 3, I do something I haven't done in years. I cancel all my meetings and drive to Cornell. The campus looks exactly the same. Red brick buildings, sprawling quads, students rushing between classes with coffee cups and determination. I walk until I find it, the Maplewood Garden, a small oasis behind the architecture building where I used to study during finals week. It's been redesigned since I graduated. The rigid, formal hedges I remember are gone, replaced with native wildflowers and winding stone paths. There's a plaque at the entrance. Redesigned by Margot Sinclair, class of 2019, in honor of spaces that let us grow wild. I sit on a bench surrounded by her work, purple asters and black-eyed Susans, ornamental grasses swaying in the November wind. Everything carefully chosen, intentionally wild, beautiful in its natural chaos. It's so completely her that my chest aches. She spent a whole semester on this. I turn to find a woman in her 60s, professor by the look of her, carrying a worn leather bag. She sits beside me without invitation. I'm sorry. Margot Sinclair. I was her thesis advisor. She gestures to the garden. This was her final project. She fought the board for months to let her rip out the formal hedges. They said it was too radical, too messy. She told them that nature isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be guided. Sounds like her. The professor smiles. You must be Dashiell Hawthorne. She mentioned you once during office hours last spring. Said she was working for someone who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what he was protecting. The observation stings with its accuracy. Did she say anything else? That she was scared she was falling for those walls instead of the person behind them. She stands, adjusting her bag. But here you are, sitting in her garden, looking like someone who's finally figured out what matters. Maybe you're not as lost as she thinks. She leaves me alone with wildflowers and realization. That evening, I do something else unprecedented. I call an emergency board meeting and announce I'm taking a sabbatical. The board loses their collective minds. 6 months, I tell them. Jackson will take over day-to-day operations. I'll remain available for major decisions, but I'm stepping back. The company nearly implodes. Phones ring, emails flood in. Investors demand explanations. I don't care. On day 6, I show up at Margot's apartment at 6 a.m. with coffee and bagels and a folder full of documents. She answers the door in pajamas, her hair a mess, eyes red-rimmed like she's been crying. Or not sleeping. Probably both. Dashiell? What are you— I'm taking a sabbatical. I hold up the folder. 6 months, starting next week. Jackson's taking over. I'm stepping away from Hawthorne Tech. She stares at me like I've grown a second head. You're what? I'm stepping away. Because you were right. About everything. I've been so busy building an empire that I forgot to build a life. I've been performing success for so long I don't know who I am without the performance. I take a breath. But I want to find out. And I want to do it with you, if you'll let me. Dashiell, let me finish, please. I set down the coffee and bagels, pulling papers from the folder. I've also established a foundation, the Sinclair Initiative for Sustainable Design. $50 million in funding for landscape architecture scholarships and urban renewal projects. Full scholarships for students from rural or working-class backgrounds. The first recipient will be announced next month. Margot's hand goes to her mouth. You— What? I can't change where I come from, Margot. I can't make Cecilia Vandermeer disappear or erase the fact that I have money and privilege you had to fight for. But I can use those things to open doors for people like you, people with talent and vision who just need someone to believe in them. I step closer. And I can stop hiding behind corporate armor and actually show you who I am. Not Dashiell Hawthorne, CEO, just Dashiell. The guy who's been lost for a really long time, but is finally starting to find his way. She's crying now, tears streaming down her face. That's a grand gesture. It's not a gesture. It's a choice. I reach for her hand, tentative. I spent 3 days sitting in a garden you designed at Cornell. Did you know there's a plaque? In honor of spaces that let us grow wild. That's what I want. Space to grow wild with you. Space to figure out who I am when I'm not performing. Space to be messy and real and probably screw up a lot. 6 months is a long time, she whispers. It's a start. Time to prove this isn't a whim or a project or some billionaire's midlife crisis. Time to show you that when I look at you, I don't see someone from a different world. I see home. Margot launches herself at me, and I catch her, holding on like she's the only solid thing in a spinning universe. She's sobbing into my shoulder, her hands fisted in my shirt, and I'm probably crying too, but I don't care. You're insane, she says against my neck. Probably. Your board is going to murder you. Jackson will handle it. Your mother is going to adopt me officially. I'm counting on it. She pulls back, her hands framing my face, her eyes searching mine. I'm scared. Me too. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if the real world is too much and we can't? I kiss her, cutting off her spiraling thoughts with the press of my lips to hers. This kiss isn't careful or tentative like the one on the terrace. It's desperate and real and full of every terrified, hopeful feeling I've been drowning in for days. When we break apart, I rest my forehead against hers. Then we'll fail together, spectacularly, but at least we'll know we tried. Dashiell Hawthorne, taking a risk without a guaranteed return on investment? She's smiling through her tears. Who are you? I'm yours, I say simply. If you want me. She kisses me again, softer this time, full of promise. Come inside. The coffee's getting cold. Is that a yes? It's a let's take 6 months and see. She pulls me through the door into her tiny studio, plants everywhere, thrift store furniture, art on every wall, and it's chaotic and perfect and completely her. But I'm keeping my apartment and my job. And if you ever make me feel small again, I won't. I pull her close. I promise I won't. Outside, the city wakes up to another Tuesday. Inside this small apartment that smells like soil and lavender, Everything feels possible again. Month 1. I learn that Margot sings to plants. Not cute little humming, full-on Broadway numbers while she's pruning roses. I discover this at 7 a.m. when I arrive at the mansion to find her belting out Defying Gravity to the hydrangeas. She doesn't stop when she sees me, just grins and keeps going, hitting notes that make my heart stutter. The plants grow better with music, she explains later, dirt under her nails, completely unapologetic. Science proves it. I start a playlist for the garden. She cries when she finds it. Month 2. I mess up. A tech magazine wants to profile me. The billionaire who walked away. Margot encourages me to do it. The journalist asks about my sabbatical, about what prompted the change. I mention wanting a more balanced life, exploring new priorities. I don't mention Margot. She finds out from Jorge, who saw the article online. The fight is spectacular. "You're ashamed of me," she says, and her voice is so quiet it terrifies me. "No, I'm protecting you. The media will tear you apart, analyze everything, turn us into some story about what? A billionaire slumming it with the gardener?" She's not yelling, which somehow makes it worse. "I knew you'd do this. I knew eventually you'd realize that keeping me separate was easier than actually integrating me into your life." It takes 3 days of groveling and a joint interview with the New York Times, where I explicitly talk about Margot, about how she changed my life, about the Sinclair Initiative, before she forgives me. The article goes viral. We trend on Twitter for a week. Margot handles it with more grace than I could ever manage. Month 3. We plant a garden together. Not at the mansion, at a community center in the Bronx, one of the first Sinclair Initiative projects. Margot designs it. I provide manual labor. My hands blister. My back aches. I've never been happier. "You're getting better at this," she says, watching me dig with something like pride. I have a good teacher. She kisses me there, covered in dirt, surrounded by kids from the neighborhood who are learning about native plants and sustainable design. Someone takes a picture. It becomes the official photo for the foundation's website. Month 4. I meet Tommy Richter. He shows up at one of Margot's project sites in Portland. We're visiting for a sustainable architecture conference. He's exactly what I expected. Flannel shirt, work boots, confused about why Margot would choose fancy school over a simple life with him. "You must be the billionaire," he says, looking me over with obvious disdain. "And you must be the man who couldn't see what he had." I don't say it meanly, just factually. Margot squeezes my hand in warning. The conversation is awkward, brief. Tommy mentions his wife, his 3 kids seems genuinely happy. Before he leaves, he pulls Margot aside. I watch them talk, see something pass between them. Closure, maybe. Forgiveness. "Thank you," she says that night, curled against me in our hotel room. "For not being territorial or weird. He's your past. I'm trying very hard to be your future. You're doing a pretty good job so far." Month 5. Jackson gets engaged. The celebration is at my mother's house, all champagne and joy. Jackson's fiancée, Rebecca, is a public defender with opinions about everything and zero tolerance for corporate nonsense. Margot loves her instantly. "Your brother found a good one," Margot says, watching them dance. "So did I." I pull her closer, swaying to music only we can hear. "Marry me." She goes still in my arms. "What?" "Not now. I know it's too soon, and we agreed to take time, and I'm probably breaking 12 different rules by even bringing this up." The words tumble out, unpolished and real. "But someday, Margot, when you're ready, when we've proven to ourselves that this works, marry me." She's crying again, happy tears this time. I've learned to tell the difference. Ask me again in a month. Is that a maybe? It's a strong possibility. Month 6. Everything changes. The board wants me back, not full-time, but more involved. There's a merger opportunity, something big enough that Jackson needs my input. I could say no. The sabbatical isn't technically over for another week, but it's the right move for the company, and I've learned that balance doesn't mean walking away. It means knowing what matters. I expect Margot to be upset. Instead, she surprises me. "Of course you should go back," she says, looking up from the garden plans she's sketching. "Dashiell, this was never about you abandoning your life. It was about you finding balance in it, finding yourself in it. You're not worried I'll slip back into old patterns?" "Are you?" I think about the past 6 months. The gardens planted, the foundation launched, the mornings spent with dirt under my fingernails instead of staring at spreadsheets. The way I've learned to be present, to listen, to choose joy over obligation. "No," I say, and mean it. "I'm not that person anymore." "Then prove it." She sets down her pencil, turns to face me fully. "Go back to work. Be the CEO, but come home to me at night. Take your weekends. Remember that empires are built by people, not sacrificed lives." She pauses. "And Dashiell?" "Yes?" "Ask me again." My heart stops. "Ask you what?" "You know what." I drop to one knee right there in her studio apartment. No ring, no plan, just raw hope and terrifying love. "Margot Sinclair, will you marry me?" She pulls me up, her hands framing my face, her eyes bright with everything we've built and everything we're still building. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. The kiss tastes like forever, like soil and lavender and every brave choice we've made. Outside, the city moves on, indifferent to small miracles. But in this moment, in this space we've created for growing wild, everything is exactly as it should be. "I love you," I say against her lips. I should have said it sooner, but I love you so much it terrifies me. "I love you too," she whispers back, "even though you're still kind of a disaster. Your disaster. My disaster. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not lost anymore. I'm home. The garden is perfect. Of course it is. Margot spent 3 months designing every detail. Native wildflowers line the aisle, purple asters and black-eyed Susans swaying in the September breeze. White chairs arranged in loose circles instead of rigid rows. String lights overhead waiting for sunset. It's intentionally imperfect, beautifully chaotic, completely us. I stand at the altar, a simple wooden arch wrapped in honeysuckle, and watch guests arrive. Tech moguls sit beside community garden volunteers. My mother is crying already, clutching Jackson's arm. Beverly has her phone out, probably live tweeting despite explicit instructions not to. Jorge is officiating, licensed online just for this occasion. Then the music starts, not traditional wedding march, but Margot's favorite Norah Jones song, and there she is. She's wearing a vintage dress, ivory lace, and flowing silk, found at an estate sale in Brooklyn. Her red hair is down, woven with wildflowers. No veil, no train, just Margot walking toward me with her hand in her father's. Wait, her father? The shock must show on my face because Margot's crying and smiling simultaneously. Her dad, weathered face, calloused hands, clearly uncomfortable in his suit, walks her down that wildflower aisle with tears streaming down his face. "Reconciliation takes time," she'd told me once, "but it's possible if both people are willing to grow." Later, I'll learn that my mother orchestrated this, that she called Margot's parents months ago, built a bridge slowly and carefully, that Vivian Hawthorne, society maven and meddling genius, decided her future daughter-in-law deserved her family at her wedding. But right now, all I can do is watch Margot come closer, this woman who called me pathetic and changed my entire life. The ceremony is short, personal. Jorge talks about gardens and growth and how love is choosing to tend something even when it's difficult. Jackson reads a poem about wildflowers. Rebecca sings, badly, but with enthusiasm. Then it's our vows. "Margot," I begin, my voice rough with emotion. "A year ago, I was drowning in a life I'd built but didn't recognize. I was successful and miserable, wealthy and empty. Then you walked into a conference room and told me the truth no one else had the courage to say. You saw through every wall I'd built and called me out, and instead of hating you for it, I fell in love. I take a breath, steadying myself. You taught me that real strength isn't control, it's vulnerability. That success isn't what you build, but who you become building it. That some things are meant to grow wild, including me. I promise to keep growing with you, to choose you every day, to build a life that's messy and real and absolutely worth it. I promise to always see you, really see you, the way you've always seen me. Margot's fully crying now, mascara running. She'll hate the photos later and I'll love them. Dashiell, she says, voice wavering. You were supposed to be a mistake, a bad decision, a moment of weakness. Instead, you became my greatest adventure. You proved that people can change, that walls can come down, that love doesn't have to make sense to be real. She squeezes my hands. I promise to keep calling you out when you need it, to remind you who you are when you forget, to build gardens and foundations and a life with you. I promise to love you, not the CEO, not the Forbes profile, but the man who gets dirt under his fingernails and cries at plant documentaries and is finally learning to be free. We exchange rings. Mine a simple platinum band, hers a vintage emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, sustainable and ethically sourced because of course it is. By the power vested in me by the internet, Jorge announces with a grin, I now pronounce you married. Kiss already. I do. We do. And the garden erupts in cheers. 2 years later. The Manhattan office of Hawthorne Sinclair Foundation occupies the entire 15th floor, all windows and light and plants everywhere. Margot insisted on the plants. I insisted on her name being first. Mr. Hawthorne, your 2 p.m. is here. Beverly's voice crackles through the intercom. She followed me to the foundation, claiming retirement was boring. Mostly she just wanted to keep meddling in my life. My 2 p.m. is a 20-year-old from rural Montana, first-generation college student, full Sinclair Initiative Scholarship recipient. She's nervous, eager, reminds me of Margot at that age. We talk for an hour about her designs for community spaces, about bringing green infrastructure to food deserts. When she leaves, I check my phone. A text from Margot. Dinner at 7? I have news. I know what the news is. I've known for 3 weeks, since I found the positive pregnancy test she'd hidden in the bathroom drawer. She thinks she's surprising me. I'm letting her. Hawthorne Tech still exists. Jackson runs it beautifully, took it public last year. I consult occasionally, mostly saying no to things that would compromise the company's new ethics-first approach. Turns out, you can be profitable and principled. Who knew? My mother hosts Sunday dinners where Margot's parents are now regulars. The sight of my mother teaching Margot's mom her secret roast recipe while our fathers argue about football is still surreal. Family, I've learned, isn't just blood, it's choice. Margot still works, though now she splits time between the foundation and her own landscape architecture firm. Last month, her design for a sustainable park system won a national award. She gave the acceptance speech in a thrift store dress and made everyone cry. That night, at our favorite Italian place in Brooklyn, the one that's definitely not fancy enough for a Hawthorne but perfect for us, Margot takes my hand across the table. So, she says, trying for casual and failing completely. How do you feel about chaos? I married you, didn't I? More chaos. Significantly more. She's grinning now, nervous and excited. Like tiny human levels of chaos, coming next May. I pull her across the table and kiss her, knocking over a wine glass and probably traumatizing nearby diners. I know, I whisper against her lips. You know? Found the test 3 weeks ago. Been waiting for you to tell me. She laughs, the sound bright and free. And you didn't say anything? You needed to tell me in your own time. I touch her face gently. How are you feeling? Are you scared? Terrified, she admits. But also, ready. We're ready, right? I think about the journey that brought us here. The humiliation that started everything. The sprinkler incident. The family dinners. The fights and reconciliations. 6 months of learning to grow wild. A wedding in a garden that bloomed with possibility. We're ready, I say. We're going to mess up a lot. Probably traumatize this kid with our gardening puns and foundation meetings. But yeah, Margot, we're ready. Outside, Brooklyn moves on. Inside this small Italian restaurant with checked tablecloths and too much garlic, we start planning our next adventure. I was lost once, drowning in success that felt like failure. Then a woman with red hair and dirty hands told me the truth, called me pathetic, saw right through me. Best thing that ever happened to me. The end.